Ακούς? Για άνοιξε εδώ. Α. Κράτα λίγο, κράτα λίγο. Πας να ελέγξεις. Όχι, πάω εγώ ρε, κάτσε. Κάτσε εγώ.
Welcome to the convention of the Iosfs 2026. Welcome to the convention of the Iosfs 2026, Storytelling, Finding and Making Meaning through Orff-Schulwerk. We would like to welcome first all presidents of Orff-Schulwerk associations and vice presidents. We would like to welcome all the presenters and presenters from associated schools and institutions, and also the come-togethers who are going to sing and play and dance with us at the start of the day or after a break. And we welcome all participants, both live and online, from 27 countries around the world. I would also like to bring greetings from Barbara Hasselbach, our past president, who unfortunately can't be with us this year.
Virginia. So far away. Hi. Buongiorno.
Guten Morgen. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, hi. Hi, everybody. Hi. Hi, everybody. Hi. Hello. 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 Oh, buongiorno Arianna, Sandra. Ragazze, buongiorno, buongiorno. Oh, bonjour Pam, where are you? Bonjour Pam. Oh, hi everybody. Kalimera, Olympia. Kalimera, Greek friends. So, hey, hello, bonjour, guten Tag. Welcome, 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 welcome. Kalimera, Kalimera. Hey, hello, bonjour, guten Tag. Welcome, 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 welcome. Kalimera, Kalimera. Hey, hello, bonjour, guten Tag. Welcome, 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 welcome. Kalimera, Kalimera. I think it was a convention for Orff practitioners, right? Where is your enthusiasm? Come on. Yeah. Thank you, thank you. Hey, hello, bonjour, guten Tag. Welcome, 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 welcome. Kalimera, Kalimera. Fantastic. Since we are coming from all around the world, at the end of the song, we are going to have an explosion of greetings in your own language. Can we try? So I will say, buongiorno. Krista, what are you going to say? Guten Tag. Shirley? Hello. Hello. Okay, you can choose. Shall we try? Okay, explosion. 1, 2, 3, I was expecting something a little bit more. Let's try once again. 1, 2, 3, Hey, hello, bonjour, guten Tag. Welcome, 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 welcome. Kalimera, Kalimera. Okay, now let's challenge ourselves. 2 groups. Wow. Okay. So group 1, group 2, and we wait for group, we will sing twice, and we are waiting for group 2 to finish, and then, yes, can we share? Yes, that's it. Okay, group 1, ready? Oh, phew. Hey, hello, bonjour, guten Tag. Hey, hello, bonjour, guten Tag. Kalimera, Kalimera. Hey, hello, bonjour, guten Tag. Hey, hello, bonjour, guten Tag. Kalimera, Kalimera. Welcome, everybody.
Hello. My name is Krista Coogan. I'm the Vice President of the Forum, and thank you. Taller? No, it's okay. And I want to thank you for joining us here in Athens, the birthplace of the epic poems, the Odyssey and the Iliad, or the Iliad and the Odyssey. These were composed in the 8th century before the Christian era and are attributed to the Greek poet Homer. These stories laid the groundwork not only for Greek culture, but also for all of Western society. The tales feature turbulent relationships between gods and mortals, courageous warriors, resourcefulness, heroism, loyalty, and determination in the search for home. Themes such as adventure or coming of age, leadership, grief and bereavement, and moral and ethical dilemmas are common in the oral and written traditions of cultures around the world. The intention of this convention is to gain a deeper understanding of how stories can enrich our knowledge of history and culture, inspire us to embark upon our own adventures, and guide us as we navigate personal and societal challenges. Moreover, stories have the power to open our hearts to beauty, to ignite our imaginations, and inspire us to create our own stories. Stories take many forms. Words that come together to create or form poetry. Notes join together to create soulful melodies and rhythms that propel action. Stories are movements, gestures, and facial expressions that form dance and dances. And stories are theater, combining text, song, movement, and dance to bring characters and situations to life, and thus cultivating our empathy and compassion. So we welcome you to this 4-day convention. We hope you will be inspired by thought-provoking ideas and gain valuable impulses for your work. There will be plenty of opportunities to laugh, to marvel at this beautiful city, and to catch up with friends and acquaintances. So enjoy your 4 days here. I want to now thank our 2 partners for this convention. The first one is the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens and the Department of Early Childhood Education. The Department of Early Childhood Education, which is an ASI, an associated institution of the Forum, is committed to the development of future teachers and researchers in the fields of education, and they emphasize a strong collaboration between theory and practice. The department connects with the educational community of the neighborhood, the state, and the country, and these connections are found in partnerships with kindergartens and primary schools, museums, and social organizations. On a European level, the department collaborates with non-governmental organizations and with the university programs Erasmus and Civis. The Forum is honored to be hosted here by the department at the National and Kapodistrian University, Athens. We especially thank Dr. Olympia Agilianou. Many of you know her. Olympia. Olympia is a long-standing member of the Forum. She's the honorary president of ESMA, a former teacher of the Moriiti School, and a faculty member here at the Department of Early Childhood Education. Olympia, your dedication to Orff-Schulwerk, your deep connection to the Forum over the years, and your long experience with university settings has made our collaboration enjoyable and fruitful. Your integrity and your professionalism have made this whole collaboration easy for us. Thank you very much. Efkaristo Poli. We also thank our second convention partner, ESMA. ESMA is the Hellenic Orff-Schulwerk Association. ESMA has been a committed and active member of the forum for 36 years. And as our partner, ESMA has taken on the work in Athens needed to be done outside of the university decisions. For instance, this evening's reception, walking tour and reception, was planned by ESMA. ESMA's president, Maria Saplauro, where is Maria? Maria! I lost myself. Go back, go back, go back. Okay, so, sorry. So Maria has had a ready smile, if you can imagine, in every single email she has written. It has graced every email. Her smile shines through. And she and the ESMA team have attended to countless details and arrangements, no matter how small. So we thank Maria and we thank George Charonitis, the vice president of ESMA, and the ESMA team, the whole ESMA team, who have lent their time and energy to help organize this convention. Ευχαριστώ.
We would now like to introduce Professor Vassilios Tsafos, Dean of the School of Education, the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens, to say a few words of welcome to you.
Good morning. Kalimera. Hello, bonjour, buongiorno, etc. Distinguished guests, speakers, dear colleagues, educators, artists, researchers, and students. It is a great honor and pleasure to welcome you to the School of Education of the National Kapodistrian University of Athens for this international convention dedicated to storytelling. Athens is a particularly meaningful place to reflect on storytelling. This is a city where rhythm, philosophy, poetry, theater, and democratic dialogue became powerful ways of understanding the human condition. Here, stories were never regarded simply as entertainment. They were ways of asking profound questions about justice, identity, community, memory, and what it means to live together. More than 2,000 years later, these questions remain remarkably relevant. Stories are among the first ways through which children encounter the world. Before they learn theories, they listen to voices. Before they master concepts, they discover meanings through rhythm, movement, sound, imagination, and play. In this sense, storytelling is not simply something we teach. It is one of the ways we become human. The educational philosophy of Orff-Schulwerk embraces this understanding. It reminds us that learning begins with experience, creativity, participation, and artistic expression. Music, language, movement, improvisation, and storytelling become elements of a shared educational journey where knowledge is not transmitted, but co-created. At a time when education is increasingly challenged by standardization, accelerated technological development, and the pressure to measure everything, gatherings like this reminds us of something essential. Education is also an art. It is the art of creating spaces where imagination flourishes, where emotions are recognized as part of learning, where curiosity is protected, and where every learner can discover their own voice. This is why storytelling matters. Stories help us connect personal experiences with collective histories. They invite us to listen before we judge. They cultivate empathy without demanding uniformity. They enable us to imagine lives different from our own while recognizing our shared humanity. For teachers, educators, storytelling is therefore not merely a teaching strategy. It is an ethical and democratic practice. Every classroom becomes richer when every child feels that their story matters, that their experiences deserve recognition, and that learning is built through dialogue rather than monologue. As a School of Education, we are deeply committed to this vision. We believe that the arts are not an addition to education. They are one of its most powerful languages. They nurture creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, aesthetic awareness, and social responsibility. Above all, they remind us that education concerns the whole person, not only what learners know, but who they become. Your convention invites us to explore how stories can be spoken, danced, sung, improvised, embodied, and shared. It asks how artistic creation can strengthen communities, connect generations, and inspire educational practices that are more inclusive, participatory, and profoundly human. Perhaps education itself is a form of storytelling. Every teacher enters the classroom carrying stories. Every learner arrives with stories waiting to be heard. And every educational encounter creates the possibility of writing a new one together. I hope that during these days, Athens becomes part of your own story, a story of inspiring conversations, creative discoveries, new friendships, and lasting collaborations. Thank you for being here. Thank you for contributing to this remarkable international community, and thank you for reminding us that through stories, we do not simply describe the world, we continually recreate it. I wish you a truly inspiring and memorable convention. Welcome to Athens. Welcome to the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens.
Thank you so much. And we would now like to invite Professor Deropoulou to say a few words to us.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, dear speakers, dear students, dear participants of the International Orff-Schulwerk Forum Salzburg Convention, on behalf of the department, I welcome you to Athens, to the Department of Early Childhood Education of the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens. Our department has been a member of the Forum's associated schools and institutions since 2024. The Forum focuses on the arts of dance and music in education, and its purpose is to inaugurate a new era, starting from Greece, of the global diffusion of its principle and cross-cultural approaches to education. The theme of this year's convention has the imaginative
titled Storytelling, Finding and Making Meaning through Orff-Schulwerk. In the context of avoiding a scientific field-centric regularity, the department's curriculum follows the direction of a critical, socio-cultural, interdisciplinary approach to education. Critical interdisciplinarity aims to challenge dominant educational practices that reproduce practices of marginalization and silencing of the weaker voices. It explores existing structures of knowledge and education by raising primary questions of values and purpose. Educational programs and curricula in formal and non-formal education do not simply offer knowledge, skills, and abilities, but also project and favor dominant stories and life experiences. They often constitute a form of domination that can exclude and silence the voice of less powerful groups. Our department's goal is to shake off all forms of oppression from restrictive roles and prescribed educational expectations. In an era of uncertainty characterized by overly complex pedagogical challenges, the involvement of the arts in educational practices can offer a perspective on this issue as it's able to develop the ability to identify and interpret exclusion. Music and dance can support education and especially inclusive thinking in education through cultural inclusion by enhancing representation and participation, improving the quality of education, and through reshaping social values regarding the acceptance of the diversity of each child. Achieving all the above goals can be accomplished through the design of inclusive educational programs that consider art as a means of liberation and self-expression. In Western culture, the learning of music or dance and other art genres, forms, is mainly based on a model of professionalism that emphasizes continuous evaluation, examination, and monitoring of performance, moving away from the idea of participatory perception and pleasure of the arts in education. In our department, music and dance and theater are perceived as a means of shaping a participatory ethos. The formation of a participatory ethos is achieved through the creation of a strong social framework in educational structures, through the encouragement of relaxed learning and enjoyment of the arts, and with alternative approaches to various forms of musical and dance expression. What is certain is that the position and the role of music and dance are approached in the department's curriculum for a better understanding of various topics and educational challenges with the goal of exploring their relationship with the real world. Storytelling is also central to educational research. Despite the emancipatory tendency of storytelling, one could reasonably argue that storytelling, and especially in educational research, has often produced reactionary approaches. Our aim is to create an imaginary space for the echoing of all those voices whose narratives are usually overlooked. Art in education opens a narrative space that affirms the contextual and the concrete while simultaneously acknowledging the ways in which such spaces are permeated by issues of power, allowing educators with political courage to take a stand against the broader context of social responsibility and the reconstruction of public life. The arts in education can function liberally in the lives of all those who are in the background of educational systems, giving meaning to the existence of difference. In closing, allow me to thank Olympia Galianou, who, as a member of the department, introduced us to the values of the forum and worked intensively to organize the convention. Thank you, Olympia, for that. On behalf of the Department of Early Childhood Education, we wish you success in the work of the convention. Keep up the storytelling, music, and dancing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your words. So we have a few announcements.
Yeah. So we'll start with the announcements, first with the book table. The book table is found on this floor at the other end of the hallway, and there are books to peruse, to also to buy. And as you maybe have read in emails, it's cash only. Okay. And the book exhibition is in the room next door. And also you have gotten information about that. You might have some books that you wanted to deliver. Where is Virginia, Anita, and Ilkay is downstairs. But if you have a question, please ask either Anita or Virginia.
Also, as you have read, there is going to be the second annual raffle. If you've bought a contribution, please find Sarah Brooke. Stand up, Sarah, so that you know. She is the person selling the raffle tickets that cost €3 or 2 for 5, and we'll be selling those until Wednesday evening. We would like to thank Studio 49, who is our sponsor towards the keynote costs. We would like also to thank the Music House Athens, the Greek distributor of Studio 49 instruments, that has a stand on the first floor where you can look at, test, and perhaps buy instruments. Marios Nikolaidis and Music House Athens are generous supporters of this convention.
So the discussion groups take place following the coffee break after the 2 keynotes, one today and one tomorrow. The lists with the spaces and chairs are posted outside on the wall outside the door. And if you notice that one group is particularly large, please look for another group so that, that the groups are less full and everybody has the possibility to contribute.
Getting to know the forum. If you have questions about the forum, about the specific committees, or even about standing for board elections, this is your opportunity. We're going to meet tomorrow at a nearby restaurant, each person paying their own tab, for any questions. If you want to join Krista and myself and a few of the board members for lunch, please come to us and let us know so that we can reserve a table for the right amount of people.
And on Thursday, we have moderated discussion groups. They will take place from 4 to 6 p.m. Please sign up for the group of your choice. By 6 o'clock on Wednesday evening, there'll be a sign downstairs by the registration desk. And you might find that the group you wanted to join is not listed, and that is partly due to the limited space that we have available.
As you have read, we have a reception this evening, which will begin with a short walking tour organized by ESMA. We will meet at the entrance to the university here in the building where you entered this morning. And tour guides will take a small group through the center of Athens to arrive at the University History Museum. Please don't forget your name tag so that you'll be able to enter the site. And this is also true for Wednesday and Thursday evening.
So on Wednesday evening, we have a performance at the Goethe Institute, which is in walking distance from this venue. You have time for a quick dinner between about 6 and 7 p.m. And the performance begins at 7:30, so, and I'm sure they will be starting on time. And there is a map in the program book to find your way, and it's an 8-minute walk. And on Thursday evening, we also have a performance. And for this, you have more time for dinner, more time to relax. Not so quick. And the site is at the National Observatory of Athens, and it's on the Nymphs Hill, which is within the archaeological site of the Acropolis. You can walk there, take 35 to 40 minutes walking through Athens, or you can take a metro or a bus and then walk about 15 minutes, or you can take a taxi. And please arrive by 8:15 because we'll be brought in to the gardens. So there's a gate there. Someone will open the gate for us to go through, and then the gate will be closed again. So, don't forget your name tags. So now we begin our storytelling adventure. So you have 2 minutes to stand up, stretch, twist, but not leave the room because we'll be starting with our first keynote in just 2 minutes. Welcome.
No? I think...
Okay. So, we begin with our first keynote, the first presentation of the day. Thank you, Maria. So we are honored to welcome Professor Dr. Theocharis Raptis as our first keynote speaker at this convention. Dr. Raptis is a professor at the Department of Early Childhood Education at the University of Ioannina in northwest Greece. He completed his degree at this same university and obtained a magister degree in music education from the Ludwig Maximilians University in Munich, Germany, where he also completed his doctoral thesis. Dr. Raptis currently serves as the director of the Laboratory of Arts and Teaching Applications at the Department of Early Childhood Education in his university. Additionally, he holds the position of deputy director of the Postgraduate Studies program and is co-editor of the annual scholarly journal Musical Pedagogics, published by the Greek Society for Music Education. Primary research interests include music education in early childhood, the philosophy of music education, systematic music pedagogy, and the relationship between music education and emotions. Please welcome Dr. Theocharis Raptis.
So, hi, hello, bonjour, guten Tag, kalimera. Okay, it's alles appropriate. So I'm very happy to be here with you today. It's a great pleasure and great honor, and because I feel very connected to everything that takes place in Iosfs Convention. There are many reasons for this. I'd like to accept my special thanks for the invitation, and it's a great honor to share some of my thoughts with you about storytelling. And the first thing to say is that the theme of the convention is indeed timely. It seeks to explore the connections between music education and storytelling, a most common yet profoundly important part of human activities. And I think it's generally accepted that stories, good stories, fascinate us. And in just 2-3 days, millions of people will rush to the cinemas to watch one of the oldest and most beautiful stories of the same. It's always the same fascination. But storytelling is also present in our everyday lives. On social media, for example, we say we post stories, even when it may be simply a photo or a short. Perhaps this is because we believe that storytelling gives meaning and continuity to our lives. It is a way of structuring our experiences and making them more interesting to others. These stories are usually presented in non-verbal ways through photos or reels, distancing themselves from language and storytelling. But we keep using the term story because it somehow makes us seem more attractive, more appealing, or because in this way we seek the unity of the self. As McIntyre notes, the unity of the self is found in the unity of narrative, which links birth to life to death. At the same time, in other fields, including science, narratives and stories can bring abstract concepts closer to us and help us understand them better. In the humanities, this narrative turn has taken momentum since the end of the 20th century, marking an important epistemological shift. It was mentioned before. There may be many reasons for this development. It became increasingly clear how important it is to allow the emergence of different voices, especially voices that could not previously be heard within a dominant discourse. Listening to many different voices can shed light on events from different perspectives, creating ruptures and discontinuities within dominant historical narratives, bringing to the surface events, lives, people, and situations that had been silenced or suppressed. As a result, there has been a significant shift in our methodological and research practices. And in recent years, this narrative term has expanded beyond the humanities and has also been applied in fields such as medicine or physics. So in this speech, I'm going to share with you some thoughts about the links between storytelling and music education. Naturally, then I would like to begin with two short stories, very short stories, okay? The first happened in the early 2000s. I was studying in Munich. The building of the Institute of Music Education, that's in the right side, it was pink. So all the students, we call this the Pinky building, okay? And this is my first pink story. At that time, Professor Kugler is that is one of the reasons that I have this connection to the Iosfs. Constantly tried to convey to us, his students then, his enthusiasm for movement in music education, for the relationship between words and music, and for the revolution that Dalcroze and Orff had brought to music education many years earlier. He encouraged us to move, to engage in practical activities in the classroom, especially in the context of teaching music to young children in kindergarten. When classes took place in the morning, however, I did not always feel very enthusiastic about moving around. Okay, and that may not always have to do with not having enough coffee. Perhaps it was an unreflective reaction that betrayed a tendency to underestimate the work we do with very young children in kindergarten. We are now in the Department of Early Childhood here. And more generally, our society still underestimates kindergarten itself, as well as the people within it, children and their teachers, most of who are women, not accidentally, and everything that takes place there. So one morning I was in class feeling very tired because I had gone to bed very late. Then we all acted out a simple story together. We brought together music and narration, and immersing myself with the others in a shared time, in a shared experience through musical storytelling, had a profound impact on me, and I thought I'd like to do something like that in my work in the future. So, and then I come to this future. This is the second story. It's much more recent. And I teach now at the University of Ioannina, at the Department of Early Childhood. And over the last few years, I have tried to make music together with my students and with children in kindergarten. One of my main goals has been to enhance children's emotional competence. What always strikes me in the course of this work is that whenever children want to speak about something more abstract, for example, about their emotions, they always begin by telling a story, always. 3 years ago, for example, we were in a kindergarten classroom during springtime. We were playing music and talking about emotions when a little girl began telling her story. Once upon my godmother came to visit me at Easter, and she gave me a pair of pink shoes as a gift. The shoes were very shiny. I think something like that here, these shoes. And after that, children love telling and listening to stories. They enjoy storytelling, even though they have a problem. They struggle with the correct verb tenses. But they use temporal expressions and try to place events in sequence along a timeline. Their narratives often begins with once upon a time and continue with repeated phrases such as and then, and after that, yes. It seems that children have a deep need to organize the sense of the world through time and narrative. So in that moment, in a moment when playing in time was our focus, the child's once upon a time came in connecting musical time and narrative time. I have thus arrived with the help of my friend Panos is here, at the title of my speech today, time always automatically emerged as the constitutive element connecting storytelling and music. My effort to think through both those stories eventually led me back to Aristotle. Okay, believe me, it's not difficult. Every topic, in every discussion, somehow Aristotle comes up. It's not difficult because he wrote about everything. So, and I think it's fascinating that Aristotle's Lyceum, the school of Aristotle, is located only about 1 kilometer from here. So I have the Google map, we are there, and in this place was the Aristotle's Lyceum. So it was the peripatetic school because they discussed and they walking. While walking, they discussed that. And perhaps they were so absorbed in our discussion and they walked to where we are here now. In this time, it was not very difficult. Now it's this traffic here, it's something else. It's another story. Okay. But, and as you will see, my speech is also a journey through time. First, I will share some thoughts on antiquity, and then I will try to connect them to the present. So, according to Aristotle, the connection between music and emotions seems to have been one of the main reasons why he included music in his proposed educational system. And according to my reading of his text, Aristotle considers time and movement to be fundamental for understanding the relationship between music and emotions. The key term for the arts in antiquity is mimesis. Musical mimesis can be understood in two ways. On the one hand, there is mimesis in terms of content, where something concrete may be represented or imitated through language, dance, or a form of programmed music. And on the other hand, there is formal mimesis, where the emphasis lies on the elements of music in the narrow sense, namely rhythm and melodies, as they imitate emotions or character traits. In his work, Politics, Aristotle considers the forms and colors of the visual arts to be signs of character, σημεία των ηθών. That is, elements that do not possess a direct or perfect resemblance to character and mental dispositions. In contrast, melodies and rhythms are described as homeomata or mimimata των ηθών, that is, likenesses or imitations of character and mental dispositions. So, if we wish to understand the nature of musical mimesis, we must therefore examine the distinction between σημείων, sign, and ομοίωμα or mimima, likeness or imitation. And the text refers to forms, schemata, colors, chromata, rhythms, rhythmi, and melodies, meli. The first two terms clearly relate to painting and sculpture. For the most interprets, the term σημείων suggests that colors and forms function merely as signs. In other words, they can only refer indirectly to character or emotional dispositions because they require the mediation of body. They are indications of character that occur in the case of the body under the influence of emotions. The resemblance of a character is only a little, επιμικρόν, is in text, and not all the people participate in the feeling about them, ou πάντες. However, the term σημείων was also used with a different meaning, namely as point in time. Aristotle himself employed the term with this temporal emphasis at least twice in his work. In the relevant passage of the Politics, emphasizing this temporal dimension of σημείων may lead us to a deeper understanding of Aristotelian mimesis. So the absence of movement and time appears to be a crucial factor here. Even if the soul of the depicted person is in motion, since passions and actions are themselves forms of movement, the colors and forms of the visual arts, which possesses no movement in their own, can only present fragments, isolated moments, instantaneous appearances of these movements. Of course, it is possible to recognize an angry person in painting, but because anger itself is a movement of the soul, a painting cannot provide a complete imitation of anger, precisely because it lacks movement and time duration. Moreover, one cannot know whether this anger is justified, and therefore cannot draw secure conclusions about the ethos, the character of the person depicted. And now we can better understand this epimikron only a little, which was mentioned above. By contrast, melody and rhythm, whose constitutive element is time, are capable of representing more fully the disposition of the soul, of human praxis, and consequently of human character. Time is understood as the constitutive element of every manifestation of ethos, since it has a special relationship to movement. So, and since time is to be understood as a constitutive element of music, music is closely related to the actions and passions of the human soul. Aristotle, as I said, wrote about everything, has also given us the most profound studies of the nature of time. And in this respect, we are very lucky because these ideas were later studied by the musicologist Thrasybulus Georgiadis. Georgiadis was a musicologist in Munich, professor for musicology, and he was a friend and a student from Karl Orff. And it's very, I think it's worth noting that one of the first, if not the first text to mention the spread of the Orff approach outside Germany is by Thrasybulus Georgiadis, who in 1936 discussed the applications of principles he had learned from Orff's group to students of that era here in Athens. So in 1936, he discussed about all these things, about Orff, not in Germany. But I go back to Aristotle. Aristotle defines time as the number of motion according to before and after. And he explains that the term number, arithmos, may signify first that which is countable, second that which is counted, and third that with which we count. And in this context, Aristotle argues that number should be understood as the second, arithmoumenon, namely that which is counted. And now comes this interpretation from Georgiadis. Georgiadis says, Aristotle uses a present passive participle, whereas the English translation, counted, tends to suggest a completed action expressed by a perfect participle. Arithmoumenon refers to something that is being counted now, in the present moment, something that I count now and now again, the ever-recurring present. In this sense, counting is not primarily directed toward establishing a final numerical result. Rather, time appears as something that is continually being counted. So for Aristotle's theory, the theory of time, the now, nin, is fundamental. Now has no extension and no duration. It is the boundary between before and after. And I can perceive it only insofar I count. From this perspective, time is number, that is the reflection of time through the act of counting. I understand time when I count. When I say 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., that is time. And in German, there is a profound connection between the verb zählen, to count, and erzählen, to tell, to narrate something. And English is not my first language, I'm sure you have realized that already, but I discovered in a lexicon that the root of the word tell is tellan, which originally also meant to count or to enumerate. From the same root comes the word bank teller. So the linguistic connection is fascinating because it suggests that narration and counting may be more closely related than we usually think. And the basis for this connection is time. The relationship between time and movement is also crucial for the present discussion. As Thrasivoulos Georgiadis writes, movement is merely that by which I perceive time. From this perspective, it becomes easier to understand why the static forms and colors of the visual arts can only function as semia of ethos and not as homeomata, not as imitations. They cannot represent movement unfolding through before and after because they are merely semia, depictions of a single now, isolated from temporal continuity. In his effort to explain time, Aristotle introduces an analogy from space and uses the term stigmi. In meaning the geometric point in order to clarify the nature of the noun. In ancient Greek, semeion and stigmi could sometimes function synonymously, and this connection reveals an important step in Aristotle's thinking. And in Old Greek, when you want to say, one moment please, you can say μια στιγμή, today. What an image represents is therefore an instantaneous appearance, something like a spatial analog of a point. The singular now of a movement, but not the movement itself. And finally, one last argument drawn from etymological considerations. In the visual art, we speak of schema, meaning form or shape, whereas in musical representations, we speak of rhythmos, namely rhythm. Originally, however, these two terms had closely related meanings. Both referred to the visible forms of movement in dance. The fact that only the term rhythmos continued to be used in the field of music and is still used today, whereas schema did not, may be explained by the different endings of the two words. A term ending in ma refers to something completed, fixed, or accomplished, while a term ending in thmos or smos refers to something involving action, process, or activity. So, this distinction between two constitutive and formative elements of the visual arts and music helps clarify why only music and not sculpture or painting is capable of representing movement within a temporal sequence. Music can therefore function as homeomaton ithon because time and movement are constitutive elements of music. Music possesses a profound affinity with every form of movement, including the movements of the soul. As Aristotle writes, there also seems to be a kinship, sygenia, between the soul and harmony and rhythms. And this relationship between music and the human soul ultimately rests upon the shared structure, the structure of movement and time. So, that was with antiquity, okay? That was Aristotle provides a philosophical foundation for understanding the connection between music and emotions. And building on this foundation, we can transform the music classroom into a space where emotions can be freely experienced and expressed. But toward what direction should this transformation lead? I need emotions in my classroom, but in what direction? What can I do with that? That's the question. And I have attempted to address this question several times through the concept of emotional competence. And Caroline Sarny developed a systematic theoretical framework for emotional competence, which includes, among other elements, awareness of one's emotional state, the ability to discern the emotions of others, the capacity to express emotions and discuss them appropriately according to context, empathic and sympathetic engagement with others' emotional experiences, and recognition of the importance of emotions in human relationship. We can therefore see that the two main fields of emotional competence are the recognition and management of both our own emotions and those of others within a particular context. So emotional education in music lessons can be grounded in a crucial distinction between the perception of emotions in music and the induction and experience of emotions through music. It's not the same. For example, someone may recognize the sadness expressed in a musical piece without necessarily feeling sad themselves at that moment. This distinction between perception and induction of emotions can be valuable when implementing music activities in the classroom aimed at fostering emotional competence. So, certain activities such spontaneous body movement to music, singing, instrumental performance, listening to live music, encourage a more immediate and direct emotional experience. In contrast, activities that combine music with storytelling, short theatrical performances, pantomime, or drawing, may promote the perception and understanding of emotions, encouraging a more reflective engagement with them. In this second category of activities, the narrative element plays a central role. A specific story gives emotions a more concrete and meaningful context, functioning as a reflective dimension within the educational process. At the same time, we do not wish to reduce children's relationship with emotions in the classroom to mere discussion or purely intellectual analysis. The central idea behind our music activities in kindergarten is the profound experiences children gain through music can become the foundation for reflection on their emotional lives. Such reflection is neither abstract nor detached. Rather, it is embodied and experiential, enriched by the many ways in which emotions interact with reason. These processes also support children in becoming aware of their emotional changes, understanding why they experience different emotions and how these change over periods of time, and also recognizing the significance of these experiences in their lives. A main argument in this speech is that storytelling is closely associated with the capacity for thought and reflection. To better understand this relationship, it is useful to examine how storytelling shapes human thinking. And certainly the first name that comes to mind in this context is Paul Ricoeur, who in his work Time and Narrative makes it clear that time becomes human time and gains meaning through narrative. We will, however, examine authors who explore the relationship between time, narrative, and art in general, and who emphasizes emotions. And the first is Jerome Bruner. In his work, Jerome Bruner focuses on the ways children think narratively. He argues that storytelling is essential for children, both as storytellers and as listeners. According to Bruner, there are two modes of thought: the paradigmatic mode, which is abstract and characteristic of scientific reasoning, and the narrative mode, which is concerned with stories, intentions, and human actions. Bruner suggests, however, that narrative thinking may actually underlie scientific thinking. His exploration of the narrative mode highlights its inherent sequentiality, the organization of events in a meaningful sequence, as its principal characteristic. And there are three more points in Bruner's theory that seem to be relevant to us. First, a crucial characteristic of narrative is that it specializes in the forging of links between the exceptional and the ordinary. The second point is that children are also ready to mark the unusual and to leave the usual unmarked, to concentrate attention and information processing on the offbeat. The last point is that emotions play a crucial role in how we make sense of things. and that whatever is associated with strong emotions remains imprinted much more deeply in our memory. Brunner's theory explains, on the one hand, how children engage with culture and how our stories help us integrate into a cultural context and a society, and on the other, why stories hold such a strong appeal for children and what this might mean in any educational context. Storytelling is also one of the most appropriate ways for a child to engage with the cultural norms and to find meaning of the world around her or him. At the same time, music can arouse emotions, and the stories can remain imprinted more deeply in children's memory. Emotional education in every classroom and the development of emotional competence should not remain merely at the level of acquiring skills. Rather, they should lead to something akin to what Gerd Biesta calls subjectification. Emotions possess not only a rational, but also an ethical dimension. In this context, emotional education can be understood as a process through which individuals develop the capacity to make right judgments and responsible decisions under particular situations. Consequently, the cultivation of emotional competence also entails an ethical dimension. Several works of Martha Nussbaum explore the ethical significance of emotions in education. Nussbaum brings together profound reflection on emotion, storytelling, and the arts, demonstrating how these domains contribute to human development and moral understanding. As a distinguished interpreter of Aristotle's philosophy, she draws extensively on Aristotelian insights into emotions, ethics, and practical judgments. As I said, Aristotle somehow comes up in the discussion every time. So, and in her book, Not for Profit, Martha Nussbaum emphasizes the importance of play and the arts in both human life and education. She argues that storytelling and narrative play are essential for the development of children's imagination, as they enable them to envision and understand the experiences of others. Through imaginative engagement with stories, children learn to adopt perspectives beyond their own and to cultivate empathy. According to Nussbaum, play provides a safe environment in which children can explore relationships, emotions, and social interactions without fear of real-world consequences. Because these experiences remain within the imaginative realm, children are able to experiment with different roles, actions, and responses while maintaining a sense of security. Within this space of safe risk, they can engage with complex human relationships and emotional sequences, thereby developing both emotional understanding and moral imagination. Through play and storytelling, children learn to empathize with others, become interested in lives different from their own, and understand how people navigate relationships. Drawing on Winnicott, Nussbaum describes play as taking place in a potential space between individuals, also a space in which children and later adults can explore otherness in ways that feel less creating than direct encounters. Within this space, the presence of others becomes a source of curiosity and delight rather than anxiety and defensiveness. Nussbaum argues that artistic activities in adulthood have a similar function, cultivating the capacities needed for friendship as well as ethical and political life. Even simple forms of imaginative engagement, such as nursery rhymes, can foster a sense of wonder by encouraging children to imagine the perspectives of others. Also, children tend to remember stories and events associated with strong emotions more vividly, and at the same time, a story's chronological structure helps them make sense of what they are feeling why they are feeling it, and which actions or events have given rise to those emotions. So far, I have discussed time as a connecting element between storytelling, music, and the arts more broadly, and have linked this to both education and emotion. And I'd like to explore these themes within the context of Orff-Forum. Since my students' years, and later through my collaboration with the Moraiti School here in Athens, I have had the impression that the Orff approach provides a remarkably open framework for a wide range of creative and educational activities. The wide range of possibilities suggested by the Orff approach using diverse musical media and practices is one of its greatest strengths. I think this openness stems from the very roots of the project, which has been a long-term creative process dating back to the Gymnasium era and was shaped through the collaboration of colleagues, each of whom contributed their own perspective and expertise. Combined with Karl Orff's own artistic explorations, this collaborative development gave rise to the close integration of music, movement, and language that characterizes the approach. The rich opportunities it provides for combining music with movement, speech, singing, theatrical performance, body percussion, and accessible musical instruments make it an ideal pedagogical framework for designing and implementing activities that engage with children's emotions. And to understand the openness of the Orff approach more fully, however, it may be necessary to look back to some of Orff's earliest experiences. Hermann Regner writes about Orff's childhood, I quote, "What he loved best of all, as he remembers today, was to tell stories. And from the very beginning, this always included music." And Regner continues, "When Orff was 10, he was given a puppet theater, his first means of experimenting in the field of music and drama. He handled the plot, dialogue, music production, and performance all by himself. The family encouraged him by listening attentively. At 13, he was taken for the first time to an opera, Richard Wagner's Flying Dutchman. When Orff describes this today, one can feel vibrations of the seriousness and intensity of emotion that made the 13-year-old boy oblivious to his real life. This memory suggests that from an early age, Orff experienced both the emotional power and the creative freedom of storytelling through music and other artistic media. His engagement with narrative was never confined to a single art form. Rather, it emerged through the integration of music, drama, dance, and movement. It is therefore not surprising that his pedagogical approach developed as one that remains open to dialogue with any art form, capable of providing a framework for narrative expression. So, bringing my talk to a close, I would like to return to the main theme that we try to explore, time. I've spoken for a long time, may have bored some of you, and perhaps listening to something for an extended period has become in our age an exercise in patience. Music and storytelling as art forms that unfold entirely through time have a special role to play in a world increasingly shaped by immediacy. Music commands us to remain in its own time, writes Biesta. So, in the age of the on-demand, that's our age, both children and adults are becoming less accustomed to waiting. We want everything now, instantly. Power seems to live in the remote control and in digital platforms that offer an endless collection of choices at the touch of a button. This virtual reality often obscures one of the most fundamental realities of human life, the reality of time itself. I think that more than anything else, we need to be in the flow of time, not just in now. Aristotle told us many years ago. Only in this way we can understand and express our emotions and communicate with others and with ourselves. Only in this way we can improve ourselves as subjects capable of making decisions. And as the philosopher Byung-Chul Han writes, only in this way we can hope. Narrative is directly linked to hope. Narrative gives meaning not only to our past, but also to our future. Hope requires narrative imagination in order to make room for something that does not yet exist. This line of thought is very close to both Nussbaum ideas and theories, and also those of Maxim Green, who places in the center of education imagination. Perhaps the biggest problem of our time is that more and more people do not see a place for themselves in the common narrative imaginations of the future. And that is what erodes hope and fuels fear. And I think this is what is feeding the rise of fascism around the world today. So, as teachers, we should give children the time to tell their stories and play their music, and we should make time to listen to them, to let them become shared, and to find their way into music. We should also make time for our stories and our music. In this age of quantification, assessments, and metrics, we should not think that this is a waste of time. And in this sense, the role of storytelling and music today may be more important than ever. So I'm sure that the next few days at this conference will be a great opportunity for us to share our music, to share our stories, to hope for something better that might come, and to make the most of our time together here. So, thank you. Here is some text that I used and I referred. You have the handout and you can find all of this there. And at least there are 3 questions for our discussion after the break. The best time is the break, and after the break then is these 3 questions. And I don't think that these questions are so isolated. So if in one group are many people, you can gain the next group and you can talk about your interests. Because the first one is more has to do with the experiences that some people have. The second is most in a pedagogical direction, some ideas, and the third one is more philosophical or reflective. But you can use the points for one theme to question to the other. There are topics open for discussion, so that is my thought. So, of course, thank you for your time. Okay.
Thank you very much for your time. And now we have time for a question or two. Is there someone that has a question for Dr. Raptis? Take a deep breath. Yes.
Push the button. Hey, there we go. Thank you very much, Dr. Raptis, for your opening. What is it called again? Thanks, keynote, that's it. All right, I've read your work, so I'm very pleased to be in the audience today. I'm curious if, I have two questions. First of all, when you were talking about the children's reactions, is that based on the work in your lab? And second of all, when you are discussing children's or emotions in general, are you, is there a particular emotional theory that you are working from? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your question. And I have tried, the central concept was this emotional competence from Sarni. And then I have tried to see how can we improve the understanding of emotions and then this experience of emotions. And we have always we have tried to assessments and to see and to come to some results from what we are doing. And then I see that when I try to have these results, I don't do my job very well. Because, for example, I said this story with a small girl. And she wanted to tell her story about the shoes. I remember that because after 1 minute, I said, okay, stop. We have our educational program now, and I want at the end that the children can name the right emotions. So I think sometimes that was for me because I have a videotape, and then I could watch everything what we did. And then I understand that this child wanted to speak about joy. She was very happy. And I thought, okay, that's something else what she says now. And then I said, stop now, because at the end of this situation, I wanted that all children could name happy, not happy, angry, fear, and something like that. So sometimes I think that we have in the classroom to be more open. I can say that doesn't mean that I'm not professional in what I do. But we all the time try to find the right metrics, the right results, this linked with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and wow, we have all acquired these emotional skills. But I think that emotional competence and emotional education in kindergarten is not only acquiring the skills. We need time, and the children need time to reflect about that. And I always think that acquiring emotional skills is not emotional competence or something like that. I think all of you have a friend with the best emotional skills. That's ChatGPT. Always, okay, polite, you ask something, you are right, very nice question, okay. But yes, but that is the ideal from emotional skills. But how can we go deeper? How can meet a decision? How can we make a judgment and a decision in a particular situation? That was always my point. So I have this theory from emotional competence, and I think Caroline, Sarni have these 8 points. It's very nice because it's always in particular situations what can the children decide and how are they feeling there. But I tried the last years not to be only to see these results. I try to open a little my mind and what I do with the children there. And storytelling was very helpful to reflections and to think one more time about my job. Okay, I don't think that, I'm not sure, is okay with your question? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Joy. I think now it's time for the break. And you will see Dr. Rapis, you will be here, yes, over the days. So if you have, in the discussion, but also if you have a question, I'm sure you can just go up and say, hello, I have my question now. So a break, and then you head off to your discussion groups, and please be on time for them. Okay.